whether I was celebrating the New Year with locals in Vietnam, or cheering on a soccer match in Mexico, meditating in an Arab settlement in the deserts of Israel, every chapter of my travels was rich with human interaction. And that's what shaped and elevated every experience. It was never the hike or the meal or the big event. It was always the people I was sharing it with, even if we had only just met. So that first plane ticket turned into a research journey through 20 countries, and this accidental discovery of some of the truths about community. How they start, what makes them tick, how people engage, the power of meaningful, intentional connection. And my wild adventure sparked new friendships, powerful conversations, and a deeper grasp of this thing called social capital. Have you heard of this? Social capital is like the bedrock, the thing that makes us all thrive. It's the foundation of every successful relationship, every successful company around the world. And everywhere I went, this idea of community was reaffirmed. And this whole concept of life being a +1 experience was also reaffirmed everywhere that I landed, including when I landed in France. Now, when you think of France, you might think of the Eiffel Tower, or maybe you think of fresh baguettes and cheese. When I landed in Paris, my first stop had nothing to do with either of those. It was actually at a McDonald's, because it was the first familiar place I was guaranteed to find a clean restroom. So I landed, I go over to this McDonald's. Now, we all know that there are McDonald's everywhere, all around the world. They are predictable, almost always open, and always busy. So I walk into this McDonald's, and it is empty. Completely empty. Kind of creepy, right? And it was around 10 a.m. on a weekday morning. Street was bustling outside, but this McDonald's was deserted. Have you ever seen an empty McDonald's? Is that a thing here? Because I know if I walk into any of the 250 McDonald's in New York City, anytime, day or night, there will be at least a handful of people in there. So honestly, standing here in an empty McDonald's in this foreign country kind of felt like the end of the world was coming. You want to know what I found out? In France, eating is something you do together. It's seen as a communal activity. And the French, for the most part, still eat 3 meals a day at set times together. They see it as a shared experience. Even when fast food options started opening up in the country in the 1960s and 70s, the French, for the most part, still stuck to their customary meal times. Which is why this McDonald's was empty at 10 a.m. and why I didn't see a single 24-hour McDonald's in all of Paris. In fact, as I continued walking through the city, I started to realize no locals were walking around while eating or drinking anything. And I had never really thought of this as a cultural thing before, but how often do we just grab a coffee or a donut on our way to work? For many of us, that single serving is a regular part of our everyday. Why not? I mean, it's convenient, it goes with our fast-paced, productive lifestyle. Except if you think about it, it's actually really individualistic. It removes us from our environment and cuts us off from connection. And maybe I came by this one naturally, but I grew up in a household where nobody eats alone. And to this day, if I go and visit my mom and I make myself something to eat, she will stop whatever she's doing and sit down with me. I didn't see a single local in France walking around with a coffee in one hand and a croissant in the other. For the French, they would rather sit down and savor. With friends, with family, and with coworkers. Sounds luxurious, right? How many times did you eat your lunch alone this week? Show of hands if it was more than 0 times. More than once? More than twice? Yeah, for most of us, it's the societal norm. It's what we do, right? We power through our lunch, we work through, sit at our desk, maybe we catch up on social media or our personal stuff. In France, 80% of meals are eaten together. 80%. They sit down and savor with friends, with families, and with coworkers. And I know that sounds luxurious. There's actually some serious benefits worth talking about. When we sit down and share a meal with our colleagues, it actually leads to an increase in productivity, so you actually get more done, even though you're not powering through your lunch. Way better rapport with your coworkers, way better communication, and every company that has incorporated this, any person that incorporates this into their lives, sees an increase in joy and satisfaction where they work, across the board. There's a lot of power in something as simple as sitting down and eating together. That's why I was speaking at Google a few months ago, and I learned that they have made eating together part of employees' daily lives. So if you talk to anyone who works at Google, they'll tell you that whether they're grabbing a coffee with coworkers or sitting down for lunch together, eating with other people on their team that they work with is part of their job, part of their daily life. Same goes for Loblaw. One of the largest, most successful retailers in North America recently launched a campaign encouraging their 200,000 employees to eat lunch with coworkers every single day. And they believe in this concept so much of food bringing people together that they celebrated this campaign by hosting free barbecues for customers to eat together in some of their stores. It's amazing, brilliant marketing, and it reaffirms this value, the power of coming together around food. A friend of mine was recently hired as a supervisor at a community center. She had a small department, only 5 staff, and 2 of those 5 staff just could not get along. From day one, they were coming to her to complain over the most minor issues. So my friend tried to remedy the situation. With a team that small, you can't really afford for anyone not to get along. So she sat down with him and tried to help correct some of their perceptions. Didn't help. She sat down with each of them individually to try and correct some of their issues. Didn't help. She approached HR, who ran some mediation sessions. Didn't work. She did everything the agency recommended. Everything. Except letting one of those 2 staff go. Instead of doing that, she decided to try this. She sent an email out on a Sunday night telling her team that every Wednesday she was going to bring her lunch to the table in the center, and that anyone who wanted to join her for lunch was welcome. So Wednesday came, she brought her lunch to the table, and slowly, one by one, each of her staff came out of their offices and joined her. And at first, it was a little awkward, but then slowly people started to chat. Second week, same thing. The third week, same thing. The 4th week, my friend calls me. She's really upset. She's been called away to a conference, and she's not going to be there on Wednesday, and she's really upset this lunch that's been going so well isn't going to happen. You know what she found out when she got back to work? Her team still sat down for lunch together, even though she wasn't there. And they talked, and they shared, and week after week, they actually started to heal some of their issues. Community is built around a shared experience. A shared experience can be something as simple as a meal, as simple as lunch. And you don't even need to be a supervisor or a manager to do this. Anyone on any team can find a communal place to have lunch and send a calendar invite out to the team. We all got to eat, right? May as well eat together. And that's exactly what my friend's email said. So whether you choose French restaurant Fridays or potluck Tuesday, any day of the week is the right day to share your lunch and have a +1 experience. You remember that McDonald's back in France? So I passed that same McDonald's around dinner time that same day. Totally different scene. The place was filled with all different groups of people, friends, families, out for dinner together. Every table had a group, all different generations, laughing and talking. And you know what I didn't see? I didn't see a single person eating on their own. Not one. Nobody was even grabbing a burger and taking it out to their car. Every table had a group, smiling, chatting, and passing food around. I just saw this great survey that was done on word association in different countries, different cultures. I thought it was so fascinating. And when Americans hear the words chocolate cake, they immediately think of guilt. Right? But when the French hear chocolate cake, they immediately think of birthdays. So the moral here is clearly eat as much chocolate cake as you want, as long as you're sharing it with others. Life, like chocolate cake, is meant to be a +1 experience. For you, for me, for us all. Enjoy the rest of the conference.